Drea here with Exposed News Outlet. Big development this week. The House of Representatives voted on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a long-awaited bill that forces the Department of Justice to open up hidden records tied to the late sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. But make no mistake, powerful forces are lining up to stop it and slow walk it at the minimum. So let's break down exactly what this bill does, who's supporting it, who's trying to block it or slow it down, and why you should care. Stay tuned. What the bill actually says. First, what is the bill? The Epstein Files Transparency Act would require the DOJ, FBI, and U.S. Attorney's offices to publish all unclassified records in their possession relating to the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell flight logs and travel records, names of individuals referenced in Epstein's network, yes, potentially government officials, donors, nonprofits, sealed immunity deals, non-prosecution agreements, internal memos about charging decisions. You get the picture. Most importantly, the bill forbids withholding records simply because publication would cause embarrassment or reputational harm. Meaning this is not just a PR spin bill. It actually has teeth. Victim protections are included. Redactions are allowed for personally identifiable victim info, child abuse materials, active investigations, etc. But the broad disclosure requirement remains. Segment 2. The stakes and why it matters. Why is this so important? For one, survivors of Epstein's trafficking are demanding answers. Who aided and abetted? Who looked the other way? And who kept deals secret? Second, the files may expose connections between powerful people, institutions, and government officials. Travel logs and flight manifests matter here. Third, from a civil rights vantage, secrecy is the opposite of justice. If the powerful can hide behind sealed arrangements and hidden files, then the rule of law is weakened and marginalized people lose. You know, I focus on constitutional rights, on defending voices that get silenced. And this is exactly that fight. Segment 3, the political drama. Here's where it gets messy. In the House, the bill passed with flying colors. In fact, all but one Republican voted to pass it. But for leadership, not thrilled. House Speaker Mike Johnson called it totally pointless, even as he agreed to schedule the vote and then voted yes at the last minute. In the Senate, the big question was whether Senate Majority Leader John Thune would even bring it to the floor. However, just after receiving it, Chuck Schumer asked for unanimous consent and had no objections, so it passed with unanimous consent, surprisingly, with flying colors. And then, of course, there was the wild card, which was Donald Trump. And, of course, he didn't sign it right away, which was he actually signed it quicker than I thought he would, but within a few hours. But he's labeled the effort a Democrat hoax. And given the personal stakes with his name showing up in some of the newly released emails and logs, the risk of a veto, in my opinion, was high. But surprisingly, he then tried to pretend like this was his plan all along, and that he wanted everyone to vote for it and release it, even though he was calling it a hoax. So yeah, try to keep, I mean, But even after he signed it into law, immediately Pam Bondi took to the podium to announce a bogus investigation in her kangaroo court.
And by the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney prevent the department from releasing all of the remaining files?
So we have released over 33,000 Epstein documents to the Hill, and we'll continue to follow the law and to have maximum transparency. Also, we will always encourage all victims to come forward.
When you say follow the law, Madam Attorney General, do you mean that you will provide all the files by 30 days?
We will follow the law. The law passed both chambers last evening. It has not yet been signed, but we will continue to follow the law, again, while protecting victims, but also providing maximum transparency.
And there it is. If you were wondering whether the foundation has been laid for Trump's DOJ to be able to find some Hail Mary last-ditch excuse to justify not releasing all of the Epstein files, this is it. This comes as the bill compelling their release passed the House 427-1 and passed the Senate unanimously. Trump has previously said that he'll sign the bill if it comes to his desk.
I don't. They can do whatever they want.
You'd sign
We'll
it
give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it.
And let's be clear, he said that because he knows that to say otherwise would be political suicide. And the pressure is even greater now, given the fact that this passed Congress by such a staggering margin. So Trump needs an escape hatch, and that escape hatch is his attorney general, who was asked today if this new investigation that Trump ordered by fiat into a bunch of Democrats who he decided were involved with Epstein will prevent the release of all the remaining files, and lo and behold, she doesn't say no, saying only that they'll follow the law. But what Pam Bondi doesn't discuss is whether she'll use the pretext of an ongoing investigation as an excuse to be able to say, well, the law dictates that the DOJ can't release any information that pertains to an ongoing investigation. Bondi was also asked specifically about that investigation into a bunch of Democrats at the behest of Donald Trump. Here's what she said.
Madam Attorney General, the DOJ statement earlier this year saying that the files would not release mentioned the fact that the review of the documents and the evidence did not suggest that any additional investigation of third parties was warranted. What changed since then that you launched this investigation?
Information that has come for information. There's information new information, additional information, and again, we will continue to follow the law, to investigate any leads. If there are any victims, we encourage all victims to come forward. And we will continue to provide maximum transparency under the law.
Ah, yes, information. I wonder whether that information was a certain post on Truth Social that said, quote, now that the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures, I will be asking Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them and him. To which Bondi swiftly replied, thank you, Mr. President. SDNY U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton is one of the most capable and trusted prosecutors in the country, and I've asked him to take the lead. As with all matters, the department will pursue this with urgency and integrity to deliver answers to the American people. Unless, of course, it's all just a coincidence that Donald Trump decided to vomit out a bunch of Democrats' names and Pam Bondi opened the exact investigation that he demanded not even 4 hours later. But yeah, I'm sure those two things are completely unrelated and that Pam Bondi just got in some new information. And of course, the rest of the GOP, recognizing that this is their escape hatch, is happily jumping on board. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said this.
Now that the Congress has passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, overwhelming votes in both chambers, Democrats say that they think the Justice Department, Pam Bondi, may slow walk the files release, citing ongoing investigations. Would it be a mistake for the administration to hold back these files, given the overwhelming expression of sentiment by the Congress here?
Well, I trust the judgment of the Justice Department to ensure that whatever files they release protect the victims, clearly, and I think there are other items, perhaps materials that were acquired through grand jury trials that perhaps they will have to make some decisions about, but I think they'll make the right decisions. I think the clear intent was, in both the House and the Senate and the bill now that, I don't know if the President signed it yet or not, but is to get the information out there. And I think, as you saw, there was a big vote yesterday in the House, and it was unanimous here in the Senate to do that.
Yes, of course. The goal here is to get everything out there, which is why Republicans have slow-walked this for 10 months, why Pam Bondi did a 180-degree about-face when she'd initially promised the files would be released, why Mike Johnson adjourned the House before they could vote, why Trump frog-marched Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room when she was the deciding vote on the Epstein discharge petition. All because these people are champions for maximum transparency. Got it. Thune says that he's sure the Justice Department will do the right thing. I'm legitimately curious here. Why do you think that? What has the DOJ done thus far that would give any cogent human being the idea that they are doing the right thing? The Attorney General lied about the files that were on her desk about to be released until all of a sudden they weren't. They gave a bunch of right-wing influencers binders to wave around that included no information that wasn't already public from the Biden administration. They've delayed releasing any files that have been summoned from the Oversight Committee beyond the ones that were virtually all public already. There's been zero effort to release anything otherwise, ultimately warranting a Republican-controlled Congress to pass a new law mandating the files release. So at what point during any of this process has the DOJ built up any goodwill to be able to say that they will do the right thing? And look, all of this is absolutely no surprise. In fact, I predicted that exactly this would happen in the immediate aftermath of Trump and Bondi's little back and forth online. This was me from last week's podcast. Trump blames shit on Democrats every day. He issues his little edicts to Pam Bondi every day. She obediently acquiesces every day. But there is a world where, if the bill to pass the Epstein files passes the House and the Senate by a big enough margin to overcome the inevitable presidential veto, that Donald Trump's last-ditch effort here might be to say, hey, look, we definitely, totally would love to release the files in accordance with that legislation, but the DOJ can't release any information about an ongoing investigation. And they will keep that probe into Bill Clinton and Larry Summers and Reid Hoffman and any other Democrat going for as long as it's convenient, which is to say, forever. So the reality is that this was easy to see coming because despite these incessant claims that Republicans are for maximum transparency, they are actually for maximum gaslighting about their decidedly minimum transparency. The bad news for Trump, though, is that his ability to have used these delay tactics in the past was wholly predicated on the rest of his party being on board, and they always were, but now they're not. And so if he tries to suppress these files with some half-baked excuse about an ongoing investigation, he will sustain pressure from everyone. This issue will consume every day of his presidency. Already, it's consuming every day of his presidency. Guys getting hit with questions on Epstein everywhere. Air Force One, in the Oval Office, at bilateral meetings, press gaggles. And look, maybe what's in those files is just so utterly devastating that it's worth it for Trump to continue to delay. But either way, if he thinks he can lean on some tired excuse to give him cover, he's likely in for a very rude, very bipartisan awakening on the other side of this.
I mean, seriously, it's just these clowns, to try to slow walk. And a lot of the files that they've already received were overly redacted as well. So what could happen next? Since it had so many votes, by the way, he couldn't have vetoed it anyway, because both chambers could override the veto with 2/3 in both chambers. So, but again, they're trying to slow walk with these newly announced investigations and all this bullshit. Although, even without full legislation and committee subpoenas, document releases, leaks could still yield new records. So, public pressure remains vital. Segment 5. What you can do and why you should care. This matters not just for Epstein's case, but for any time powerful people escape accountability under secrecy. Here's what you can do. Share this video. Transparency depends on public awareness. Contact your senator and congressman or women and tell them you support the Epstein Transparency Act and demand a full release of the files and not over-redacted BS. Engage survivors' voices. Amplify their stories, because release of records isn't just about names. It's about justice for victims. Follow the story on my channel podcast. I'll track every step of this bill. So subscribe, hit the bell. Be sure to select all so you get all my notifications. Use hashtags Epstein Files, hashtag Transparency Act when sharing on social media so this stays trending and pressure stays high. Also hashtag Exposed News Outlet. Be sure to follow us on Facebook if you haven't yet at Exposed News Outlet with Drea. On TikTok at exposed.news.outlet. Transparency is the bedrock of democracy. When we allow secrets to persist, we allow power to be abused. Let's make sure this bill doesn't become another broken promise. I'll be watching, and so should you. Once again, I'm Drea with Exposed News Outlet. Until next time, stay alert, stay engaged, and stay safe and free. Let me know what you think in the description box below. If you stayed till the end, drop a blue heart down there so I know you've stayed till the end. And again, if you can share it on your platforms, I really appreciate it. It really helps a lot. Thank you for watching Exposed News Outlet.